Drums keep pounding a rhythm to the brain. La da 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 dee. Da 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 da. Drums keep pounding a rhythm to the brain. La da 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 dee. Da 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 da.
How's it going, guys? So we are back for another Mitch on the Mic live stream here in the studio that we have changed around a fair bit, and a lot of last minute changes that sort of went into making sure the stream was actually going to run today. Everything's changed around. We have an incredible LED light in the background as well. Compliments of my partner Haley. She has set all that side of things up. If you are looking for more information of a similar LED light, let me know and I can sort of point you in the right direction. We got a really good deal through sort of family friend and side of things. Couple of things to cover on this one. I know I say this every single time. Shouldn't be a very long stream today. We both have, both myself and Scotty have time restraints on this one. So we are locked into a fairly short but hopefully compact stream on this one. We're going to talk about upcoming events, recently past events, and a couple of little sort of things that will probably fill in a little bit of extra time as well. Some recent announcements, that sort of side of things. Both are mainly off-road, new off-road car coming out, something a little bit different to what we're probably usually talking about. And we might even have a bit of a chat about a new on-road car that is sort of being released in the local area. So I actually, got a big thumbs up from this man right here. We'll get him on stage, Mr. Scotty Guyett. How's it going, Scotty?
Mitch, how are you? As if you and I are ever going to have a short conversation. That's not happening. We're in for the long haul. We'll be here till midnight. It's good to see you, mate. Good to see you.
No, it's really good to see you. And we caught up over the last weekend at a beautiful town, nice remote area. There's lakes, just seaside area, beaches only minutes away, the beautiful mountain of Toowoomba. And, we're going to talk about a fair bit of that in a little bit here as well. So I'm really looking forward to our chat about Toowoomba, a great event up there. And it's always a good, entertaining event up there. Probably one of my favorites in the year.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good fun weekend.
Yeah, it really was. How have you been, mate?
Really good. I have to say, Mitch, like at the moment, and it comes and goes a little bit for most of us, but I am loving RC right at the moment. I'm just like, I'm all in, really loving racing as much as I can. I can't get to the racetrack every weekend, but whenever I can. And I'm loving keeping an eye on, all these new cars coming out that you talked about, some on the on-road side, some on the off-road side, some vintage stuff. And, and then I'm enjoying being a part of helping cover some events as well with RC Race Media and the crew. So really loving racing. Probably not on the mountain bike as much as I should be because I'm spending too much time at the racetrack. Yeah.
Yeah, gee, and we had actually a little bit of a chat about the mountain bikes whilst we were on the mountain, and I think I recall that I'd say the last time I was on my mountain bike would have been a good year and a half ago. And so, I would say I'm probably in a significantly heavier situation of not being on a mountain bike than yourself. And I'm dying to get back onto it as well.
All right, let's do it. Next Saturday, we'll do it.
Yeah, we'll have to get into it. Hopefully this weather buzzes up as well, not just for next Saturday, but hopefully by tomorrow so we can get back to the track. So that would be nice.
It's been that kind of summer in East Coast Australia, hasn't it, where it seems to have rained nearly every weekend. I know the Chargers guys who race here in Brisbane race fortnightly, and it literally has rained every fortnight for them, for the last couple of months. So it's grey and drizzly outside at the moment, and they're, I think, hoping to get a race in tomorrow. I think tonight's club on-road racing is probably not going to happen around the southeast Queensland, and I think it's raining in Sydney as well. So East Coast, it's been a wet season. Yeah,
it has been a wet season, and an unfortunate one to remember. But hopefully, on the upside from here, hopefully we can get some sunnier days, sunnier weeks, and that we can get some racing in. But we're going to kick off with the ABC event that was held over in Manila. You were lucky enough to work, as you mentioned just before, with the RC Race Media crew and Scotty Ernst, with the Scotty Ernst production team for that event. Run me through how that event went down. How actually, we'll start off with how you got into the production team with Scotty Ernst.
Gee, I don't know. That's a complicated story. As you know, we've talked before. I've been writing for magazines and doing all sorts of stuff, commentary and all sorts of things for RC for 30 plus years. So it's always, a thing I enjoy is telling stories about racing. And I met Scotty at the Asian on-road champs race at Brenda last year, and he had Tony and Matt from RC Race Media doing the live streaming coverage. And so I met all of those guys there and said, hey, look, if you ever need an extra set of hands, I'm all in. And so I joined them on a sort of a casual part-time basis for the ABC race at Pine Hills last July. Tried to race 2 classes and do coverage with the guys, and had a great time doing it, but realised that you really can't do that. So this year, I'm very fortunate they invited me to come and join them for the series. So working across the series with Scotty and Tony and Matt, and then some extra ring-ins that we get from time to time. So my part in the team is a small part. It's the words and some photos and some of the social media stuff, while Matt and Tony drive the stream, and Scotty kind of runs the whole show. So it's a great team, and it's really fun to work with those guys, and just telling the stories of the races that are coming up, of what's happening on the track, and trying to do as best we can to help people have a great time and stay in touch with what's going on.
Yeah, no, exactly. Before we get too much further, we'll cover a couple of quick comments here, and the one important one here we'll cover off quickly here. Steph, so the Queensland State title will be held at Chargers RC from the 21st to the 23rd of June, so this month. So we are 3 weeks away from it, or less than 3 weeks away from it now. Make sure we're getting our entries in for that one. It's looking like a pretty big one, massive for stadium truck. It's probably the biggest stadium truck entries once again that we've seen in I don't know how long. So that'll be awesome. If you have a stadium truck, I think they're still trying to fill up, I think either a 3rd or a 4th heat for stadium truck. I think it might be a 4th heat.
I think it's 4. Yeah, I think they're up to 4 now. Yeah. So
4 heats of stadium trucks. If you have a stadium truck laying around, bring it out. The old T5M, they will still be quick around there. So bring out an outlaw stadium truck. It'll be awesome fun. Tony Watson, wish we had an indoor track. Yeah. Would be nice. Definitely would be nice.
Yeah.
And
I think we've had a couple of goes at indoor tracks, haven't we?
But, we have had in the local region here and down in Sydney. They've had a couple of goes, but they've unfortunately with the rent around the local area, it doesn't unfortunately work out too well. Unfortunately, which is sad.
Yeah.
And Louis Ty Bill saying, "Hey guys, yes, how's it going?" I'm guessing it'll be Ty Bill. So on the production sort of side of things, when it comes to the ABC events, you would probably, I'd say you focus a lot on the actual write-ups, that sort of side of things when it comes to the events.
Yeah, so my job during the event is, and in the lead up, is all the written content that pops up on the ABC social media pages. So all the words and some of the photos. Had a photographer with me in Manila, one of Scotty's crew from the US, who was fantastic. So I didn't have to do a lot of photos. But in New Zealand, I also did the photos. But yeah, mainly my job is words. So trying to help tell the story of what we're seeing on the racetrack. And I know social media is not a place for long form writing, but I love writing the whole long story. So the guys they humor me. They let me kind of write long stories, and it's a fun part of how I like to tell the story of the race. But yeah, that's my job. Just a little part of the team. Yeah.
Yeah, and we all see the results that are coming out of that, and the quality of the driving, the quality of the posts and stuff, and a massive rep to yourself and also the rest of the crew and stuff, obviously, for putting out what is easily one of the, if not the most professional looking broadcast summaries and stuff from out of all events in the year. And I think a lot of people are saying very similar things. And I remember we were talking up at Toowoomba, and that's pretty much what Scotty said to you guys. That's what we want to achieve.
Yeah. We want people who come to that race to have a great time, and we want people who can't get there to kind of be able to keep in touch with what's happening, and not just to have to, not only to be able to watch the stream, but also to read some bits and look at some photos and see some reels and all of the things that go into covering a race nowadays. And we pay really close attention to what other people are doing around the world, and we're always trying to improve the coverage to make sure that it's high quality coverage. And so far so good. This year's been really good. The 2 rounds of the series in New Zealand, first of all in February, and then in Manila for the Philippine Masters in April just gone. The coverage has been good because the races are good. People are telling stories to us on camera, and they're telling stories to us off camera, and we're able to kind of share some of those stories. So that's kind of essentially how things go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that sort of probably sense of the fun that probably had at that event. Alex there and enjoying it with all the crew over there, and that's the side of things. But yeah, it looked like an absolutely incredible event. And if people aren't or watching with the Asian Buggy Championships Facebook page, and that's the side of things, make sure you jump on it and give them a follow. And we got the next event coming up, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. That's being held in Brisbane. And we will cover a fair bit of that not too long from now. But the overall event and stuff itself. So previous years, and I know that the No Name Buggy Challenge, and we'll talk about them in a little bit as well, because they had some incredible reviews for it. The track itself recently changed from a molasses base to an oil based track.
Yeah.
What was the sort of overall representation of the drivers coming out of that event for the actual track surface?
I mean, the event was fantastic, and the track's amazing. If you've seen the photos and you watch the video, the thing just looks spectacular, visually spectacular. It's incredible. I often think we're a bunch of weirdos, aren't we, that roll up to a few piles of dirt and kind of go, "Oh my gosh, that's beautiful." But that's what it was. We all got off the bus and just went, "The thing is spectacular." So Edward and Ricky and their team over in Manila just did an incredible job presenting. And as you said, they moved from a molasses high grip but really high tyre wear surface that they'd previously used to the kind of oil-based. And really, I think that happened when Edward was in Brisbane at Pine Hills last year for the Asian Buggy Champs round, and kind of got to see the track that Zach and Ty and all the crew at Pine Hills put together and the surface that they use. And he went home and went, "All right, we're going to have a crack at that." And that's really what happened. Over the last year, they've progressively transformed the track. So it has that, that oil surface that we've come to know from Pine Hills and Adelaide and other places in Australia. That's that high grip, but not crazy kind of high grip, and also relatively low tire wear. So, it's not too hard on the cars. It's fun to drive. It's got good grip, and that's really what it was like. And the thing about this track in particular, this Manila track, Circular Verde, it's incredibly three-dimensional, Mitch. You can kind of see it in the video and the photos, and then when you're there, you kind of go, wow. Every part of the track, there's hardly anything that's flat. Even the front straight, is a kind of a downhill, but every corner is banked. Some are really off camber, big berms and jumps, and so the thing looks spectacular. And to watch the cars going around is something else. I think, unfortunately, somebody threw a radio at me on Wednesday morning and said, "Do a couple of laps." And so I did a couple of laps on Wednesday morning and spent the whole rest of the week wishing I was racing. I mean, it was so much fun, even just the 2 or 3 laps that I got to do. Incredible racetrack. You can see it there on the screen, the photos.
And the amount of effort they put into presentation of the actual track, and, the grass and fields, that, as you mentioned, the 3D nature of the track, it is just an incredibly stunning track, and it's definitely on the bucket list.
Yeah, and it's a great facility too, right? Like a 3-story tall sort of driver stand, race control and spectator areas and media area in the middle, hobby shop and cleaning and pit area kind of on the ground level, and then the driver stand's really high. Huge kind of undercover pit areas and an extended area with some marquees for this year. It's right on the back of a little restaurant precinct, so you can wander over and pick up some bits and pieces from there. Take advantage of the air-conditioned bathrooms over at the shopping centre, which, when every day was 38 or 39 degrees, was, a few of us probably spent more time than we needed to in the bathroom. Not saying any names.
I don't want to know anymore, Scotty.
But yeah, that's, incredible facility, really, really well put together, and, and a bunch of just gracious hosts. They're excited to have people from all over Asia and beyond at that race. It's a race with such rich history too. It's been, I think 2010 or something was the first one, but it's, there's all sorts of people have won the race, and it has such a rich history. And now it's part of the Asian Buggy Championship series. So that, brings just a little added dimension. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility at all that track would host a world championship sometime down the track, and it would be a phenomenal event. It's an incredible city. It's relatively easy to get to. There's the event hotel sort of just down the road from the track is really good, and it was really fun to be there. My first time in Manila. The only downside for me was that I wasn't racing because, gee, that track was fun to do a couple of laps on. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely a bucket list track, I'd say, for a lot of drivers in the 8 scale scene. I'd love to get over there next year, and we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of really good comments coming out of the No Name podcast and stuff directed at, the media side of things. The whole crew pretty much talked about how good the whole presentation, whether it be the track, the facility, the actual production scale that you guys were doing, were pretty much, and all of them, including JQ, which getting a good word out of JQ it's pretty rare, I'd say. So if anyone has a chance to go back and listen to the recent No Name podcast, have a listen to that, and they give a very good representation of how well yourself and RC Race Media and how Scotty Ernst usually runs it as well. So
yeah, and look, Mitch, it's also a credit to the people that are there racing, right? So everyone that was there, I mean, it's serious race meeting and there's some serious talent. We'll talk about that in a minute, but everyone was there to have a good time. And so, the vibe in the pits is good. There's plenty of track time. One of Scotty's kind of priorities always is to get the day's activities wrapped up in time for people to be able to go out and have dinner and relax a bit and enjoy things. And so that's a mantra in the Asian Buggy Championship events. We don't start too early and we don't finish too late, so that people can actually enjoy themselves. And so people buy into that. Everyone that was there was having a great time. You wander past the restaurants at night and there's groups of racers kind of telling stories and eating some amazing food, and just having a good time. And when we travel for races, you want to be able to enjoy yourself, not just be at a racetrack 14 or 15 hours a day. Nobody really needs that. Yeah.
No, exactly right. No. And the actual drivers that were there, I know you briefly mentioned it there just before as well. Tell me about the caliber of drivers that actually went from not just, Australia, but also internationally, America, Europe and stuff.
Yeah. So it's a round of the Asian Buggy Championship Series. That's a kind of growing fledgling series. So we've got certainly some of the best from Australia, New Zealand, and then a number of drivers from the Philippines, a couple from Japan, some from Indonesia and Korea, and so on. But then there were, a group of professional drivers from right across the world who were there, and that's really going to be headlined by Davide Ongaro, of course. 2-time in a row world champion, plus 4-wheel drive 10th scale world champion. Any race meeting he goes to, he's going to be the draw card. Yep. The interesting thing for this event, of course, and it's well documented, he couldn't get there until Friday morning. So everyone else had been on the track for open practice, official practice, seeding practice. He literally gets off the plane late Thursday night, comes to the track Friday morning, quick practice, straight into qualifying. So to see him kind of go at it with not much track time was pretty cool to see. Then you had people like Atsushi, and I'd say almost Atsushi was the star of the event. In a sense, like it's been a minute since we've seen Hara on a racetrack at that kind of international level, particularly in 8 scale. He'd been at TITC a few weeks before that, but for 8 scale, it's been a while. And he kind of came to the event, and SWEX helped him with the car, and he put in the track time. I think finished the car on the Sunday, and then spent 3 days practicing. And he was fast, and he was friendly, and he was warm, and he was engaging, and nothing was too much trouble. And he is a legit kind of superstar of the sport, particularly if you've been around a while. He won his first world championship in around 2000, then again in 2008 in 8 scale. That still one of the best 8 scale world champs finals ever, 2008. So he was a star, and he looked good all week. And then, come finals time, and we'll talk about that in a second, he led a fair chunk of the final, finished on the podium. So you got him, you got Jorn Neumann, who was over from Germany, who just drove on the ragged edge all week. He was spectacular to watch. He just was amazing. Ryan Lutz, who'd been with us in New Zealand for round 1 of the series, came back, his first time in Manila. Ryan is a class act, on and off the track, and, he did his thing. Ryan Pavidis was there from the US, his first time in Asia. I think he said to me that he'd only travelled overseas once previously to race, and that was the Worlds last year, 2 years ago in Spain. So this was only his second kind of international trip. They were some of the kind of, the big names, the pro drivers, alongside the best of Australia and New Zealand, and some other parts of Asia. So good event. lots of feedback coming through from people who weren't there saying, "Oof, wish we were there. We're going to come next year." So I think 2025 Philippine Masters is likely to be bigger and better again on what was already pretty special this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have no doubt at all. I'd say everything is just sort of mingled in together there to just produce what will be an even better event again next year. And I'd be surprised if we don't see more and more high level caliber drivers attending that event.
Yeah,
So
it's good
really
times.
looking forward to it. And with that as well, Australian top level drivers that we had going over to the event. So we had what? So we had Alex Bernardi going over. We had Christian Woolherder. Who
Yep.
else do we have over there? Zach Ryan.
Uh, Yeah, Zach Ryan was there. Jackson Beale was there.
Jackson Steele.
They're
Yep.
probably some of the kind of front running guys that were in the finals.
Mhm.
And really, you'd almost say this was a breakout international performance for Alex. You know, he's raced in the US once or twice,
Yeah.
but this was a race where he really put his best foot forward, and certainly at times through qualifying, he looked quality. So I
Yep.
think there was one. I think might have been Saturday morning, first round of Nitro buggy qualifying, first or second round. He made a mistake on lap one, which dropped him about 3 or 4 seconds off Ewan Neumann, who was out front. And Neumann was blazing away, like I just said before, so aggressive, so fast. And Alex got within a second of him by the end of that qualifier. And so, he took 2.5, 3 seconds out of Ewan over the 5 minutes. We're running 5-minute qualifiers. He won a round in electric. I think he won a round in nitro, qualified second in both classes. And so it really was this kind of breakout performance. Things didn't go his way in the main, and there's a few people that ran into kind of fuel mileage issues in the main, and he was one of them. So ended up finishing, I think, just behind Christian in about 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
But it really was that kind of, okay, this guy is at a world standard.
Yeah.
I spoke to, I think it was Ryan Pavidis. No, it was Ryan Lutz. I chatted with one night and said, it's the first time he'd seen Alex, and said, what do you make of this? I called him a kid. Sorry, Alex, you're a kid compared to me. What do you make of this kid? How does he stack up? And Ryan's kind of response was, he's got the skills to make a World's A final. Like, that is the level that he's driving at. So, when we look around Australia and we see someone like that, and then we see the kind of talent that is on display, obviously someone like Kyle McBride, but there's plenty of others that are coming as well. And we can talk about that when we talk about Pine Hills. So that was pretty cool to see. And then I also really loved the way Christian Walhuda went around the event. They just worked away at the event, and his car looked really good, really nice to drive at the times that I was watching it. And so he did his business quietly in qualifying, and then in the main he just never went away. He was always there. He was in the top 2 or 3 for quite a long time. Just faded off a little tiny bit at the end, but on the back of a Femke event where he's on the podium, it's been a big year so far for Christian, and he looked pretty good over there. So there's a couple of the Aussies, particularly in the buggy classes, that did a really good job.
Yeah, I got to actually bring back up Alex, and I was a little bit concerned going into this event after, I would say, not exactly I wouldn't say a bad event over at the Nationals down in Adelaide, but probably more so on the side of I'd say concerning side, in the way that he had a fair few technical gremlins whilst he was down there. Definitely was, in my opinion, would have been concerns for potential servos issues and that sort of side of things. But it seemed like, at least, that he didn't have any major issues with that sort of side of things whilst he was over there. So I would say that, at least if it was me, that would have been in the back of my head, coming off of what, qualifying really well at the Nationals, but then having multiple failures, throughout qualifying and also in the mains and stuff, that going into another large scale event where you have even realistically a deeper field of high level caliber drivers, whilst qualifying good there, then having to do that sort of hour long main and, the 3 10-minute finals when it comes to electric as well. So that definitely, at least for me, I'm sure it probably would have been at least some concern for Alex to, making sure that his gear was going to be all right.
Got to do the business. He went through qualifying without any troubles at all that I noticed. Like I said, he was one of a number of drivers, including Ongaro, who ran into fuel mileage problems in the finals. And, I think probably half the field flamed out at some point in the finals, or almost half. something in the weather or the atmosphere, maybe the humidity changed a little bit on that Sunday, and there was a few cars sounding just a smidge rich, and we
Right.
saw Ongaro kind of run dry coming in to his second stop. We saw Lutz likewise run dry, kind of on the cusp of coming into pit lane, and Alex was another. Almost like I said, not almost everyone, but probably nearly half the field did run out of fuel at some point in that final, and I can't. I'm not a nitro engine guy. That's not my kind of skill set, if you like. If I have a skill set, it isn't that. So I can't tell you why that was, but the fact that it happened to so many people suggests to me that there was just something that had changed in the atmosphere, which meant, the tuning was just a little bit off. Maybe someone can jump in the comments that was there that, that can speak to that with a bit more technical kind of expertise. Ty, you might have a thought on that, but that's kind of how it looked for me. And so Alex was one of those, but it caught a lot of people out. So that aside, the performance was good, the gear was good, and he was right in the mix. Finished on the podium in electric, and definitely had the speed to be on the podium in nitro. Without that flame out.
Yeah. And you mentioned as well, Christian Wohlherter, the fact that he's having such a busy year and such a quality year as well, just seems to be a very consistent driver and consistently performing to a really, really good level. So I've been very pleasantly surprised. I believe this old man's name Martin. I'm pretty sure Martin Wohlherter, a long-time racer himself, and he's
he's a past Australian champion. He knows what he's doing. They've got a great program going. Clearly, the S Works is a really good buggy, and they're making the most of it. And I like
to suit him well.
I like that kind of the way they're going about it. They just quietly work away at things in qualifying, and you just know that they're never going to go away finals time. They're just there, and he's driving really nicely. I think it'll be really interesting to see where he stacks up at Pine Hills in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, exactly. Zach Ryan's got back to us on the fuel issues. I honestly think it's just a pit man rushing in most instances and not filling the tank completely. So interesting.
There you go. Yeah, and Zach was in that final as well. Zach's another one that kind of worked. He worked away really hard. He and Ben, Ben Panic really had to work away at the cars a lot through the week. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but it looked like, the setup that they would normally run it in Pine Hills just didn't kind of seem to be working, or tyre choice was really difficult there. But by Sunday, he was right in the mix. He looked really good in the finals as well. And Zach's another one that you just know is just always going to be there, never going to go away, never going to die wondering.
No, exactly. And tyres that they were using over there, I believe they were using like a clay compound or like an aqua compound for J Concepts, something along those lines,
Yeah, there were different thoughts on tread patterns, but in terms of compound, people seem to gravitate towards clay. So, the story that everyone knows is Ryan Lutz arrived with one set of clay compound tyres. He runs AKA. Found out on about Thursday that they were about a second a lap faster than everything else that he had. So he kind of had to put them away and save them for Sunday and just try and find another way. So, there were people treating tyres with WD-40 to try and soften them up. There were every different tread pattern and compound you can think of, but predominantly gravitating towards clay.
Okay.
I do remember chatting with, now I'm going to forget who told me this. It might have been Alex. That talked a little bit about, when changing from a pin to a bar tire, they had to really rethink the whole car setup. The tire just works so differently that, if they decided to make a tire change, then they'd have to make a lot of other car setup changes as well. And so we saw a lot of kind of people trying to work out the tire situation through practice and even right through qualifying. And as I said, Ryan Lutz is just, and he told that story himself, so I'm not speaking out of school. But he was kind of hunting high and low for another set of AKA clay compound tyres to stay in the mix.
Actually, bringing that up there, the change of setup required for the change of pins to bars. And this is way off topic, but I've noticed that a similar sort of thing goes down at Logan when the track is really grouped up at Logan. When there's nice moisture in the track, that you can definitely chuck a set of bars on. And I've chucked a set of bars on, whether it be a 10 scale or even an 8 scale in the past. But the car, whilst it feels great, like in certain ways, it just feels it feels terrible at the same time. You just know that the potential's there, but to actually get the car into that window, you probably have to put about an hour and a half, for me, probably 3 hours worth of work into it. So, I could understand where they're coming from for the pins to bar switch over.
Yeah.
We may as well click on over to results
Hmm.
from that event. Actually, we'll quickly cover a couple of comments before we go over to the results. Checking in will be Crystal. Thank you very much for jumping in there, Crystal. Good friend from down Sydney way. Good friend of Haley as well. Lovely lady. Tony, how good was Dom's interview at the Australian Carpet Series? Yes, I was stitched up from that. I actually going into privacy here. I was sitting in the hospital in the process of looking at getting some hand scans from an X-ray machine. That's the side of things. And all of a sudden, I had a pop up on my Facebook page that I knew that I didn't upload it, and I had my partner sitting right next to me. I said, "Haley, did you upload this? What is this?" She goes, "No." Like, why would I upload a video and not tell you? I was like, what the hell is this then? Man, I absolutely wet myself laughing while sitting in the emergency room at the hospital in absolute agony from my hand. So it definitely it made the night quite a lot more entertaining. So I really heavily appreciate what Tony and Tom have got up to in behind the scenes stuff with that. Yes.
Who knew that Dom was such a comedian? I mean, it was the dry sense of humor, the little facial expressions. It was
Yeah.
absolute gold. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy at work, he's the biggest slacker, doesn't laugh at anything. You try to make a joke with him, it goes straight over his head. I've never seen a person so blunt and blind in my life. So, you know what,
No
Dom?
comment. No
Yeah.
comment. No, I'm not saying anything.
He doesn't watch this stuff anyway, Scott. You can just berate him at the moment. He won't watch it. He doesn't watch any of my stuff.
He got you good. He got you good. He got you good.
Yes, no, they did a quality job on that one. I really appreciated that. Toby was saying how good was the Indian over at the track.
Yeah, as a young fella, Dion. At father and son team, I think that's probably who we're talking about, Ty. But lovely, lovely kind of crew and good young fella. Ended up, I think he was maybe third or second or third in the junior final as well. But just great to see that crew there. And that's one of the things we're hoping with the Asian Buggy Champs is to see more kind of races from across the broad kind of Asian kind of area. Like numerically, it's dominated by Australian and New Zealand races at the moment. But we saw obviously a bunch of local drivers in Manila, and then we saw Scott Yang was there, and there was a bunch of other Korean drivers there, a couple of Japanese, as I said, at Sushi, for example. So hopefully we'll see more and more drivers from across Asia at getting to some of these races, particularly the Masters. When we're there next year, and round 4 of the series this year takes place in Jakarta in Indonesia in September. So I think it's only a week or two after the World. So hopefully we'll see, a bunch of other new names and new faces to the series when we go to Jakarta later in the year.
Yeah. Did you hear any word from, say, any of the local drivers over there potentially coming to race over in Brisbane? Was there any sort of word from them?
It's the challenge for people to come to Brisbane is that race sold out so fast.
Yeah.
I think if I'm remembering right, we had the entries open prior to Manila, so it literally sold out within a couple of days. And so if you weren't thinking ahead and planning ahead, so people that we might have talked to in Manila who would say, "Oh yeah, I'd love to do one of these." Well, I mean, Brisbane sold out, so I think we might see a few guys at Jakarta, as I said, and then we might see the series grow a little bit in that kind of international flavour next year, I think.
Yeah. And speak of the devil, Martin has decided to check in on us. Martin, we were talking really badly about you before, so you're going to have to rewind about 10 minutes and rewatch that. Mainly Scotty. It was all Scotty was talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Lies.
All right, let's jump over to results from the Asian Buggy Championships over in the Philippines, or Philippines Masters. And if I can bring that up on screen, doesn't surprise me. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't surprise me either, Marty. All right, let's see. And that should be the one just there. And it is up. Alrighty. So yeah, Asian Buggy Championships results.
Yeah,
This was from the Philippine Masters.
Yep. So
as well.
the seniors classes weren't really run. It was really a finals kind of series rather than a separate
Right.
qualifying class.
Okay.
So that just happened on the Sunday. And
Yep.
Edward Seo is one of the really one of the driving forces behind the club and the event. He
Yep.
was in Brisbane last year, and he'll be over again this year. Just a lovely fella, and can wheel as well. So it's really
cool.
good to see him take the win. And Ben Panic, as I said earlier. Kind of he and Zach really worked away at trying to make the cars work and find the right tyres and kind of got in the groove on Sunday. And so, Ben drove a really nice job. A nice drive. That's the seniors race. Brisbane will be a different story because it's actually a separate class right through qualifying. But that was the story there. I think
Good to
there was,
see,
so there was, sorry, go.
Yeah. It's just good to see Darren Johnson over there again.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Darren in a couple of years. Old DJ, I'm sure he probably enjoyed the event as well.
There was a good crew, guys from Sydney, a bunch from all over the country that were there, and right through the field. With Darren Keynes was there, Mr. Mac 1, in between trips to the US. I think he's been in the US for a couple of races, maybe before and after that.
Having a ball over there at the moment.
Yeah, and he had a couple of young guys from Brisbane with him as well. Who, Sam Carstairs was one of the guys that was there. Sam did a really good job, and he's not been racing all that long, but he's starting to show some really good speed. So you had, literally everyone from Alex down to kind of first-time travellers. There's a couple of guys from Central Queensland. One guy who's a pro golfer, I'm going to get in trouble now because his name's just escaped me. Might have been Paul Machula, I think. Yeah. So Paul has a career as a pro golfer, or as a teaching professional, but he was over in Manila racing. Had a great time. Not something he'd done before. So all sorts of people from right across Australia were there at the event. Yeah, and I should say a great crew from New Zealand. And I think maybe that New Zealand crew, they might be some of the friendliest people you kind of come across. And having met them over in New Zealand for round one, to see those guys again in Manila was awesome.
Yeah, I've said
sorry, mate. I keep talking too much.
No,
this is supposed to be a short episode.
Yeah, we're halfway through our quota. No, I've said it many a times. So the New Zealand crew are just epic to race over there, and that sort of side of things. So it's great to see the ABC heading over to New Zealand to have a race over there. So it's really good to see. We will flick on over to juniors.
So again, that was just the one-off race. So there was not a lot of juniors at the event, it has to be said. So compared to Brisbane, where there'll be, I think there's 14 or 15 junior drivers entered. So the junior final at Pine Hills will be ferociously fought. But at Manila, it was we managed to get enough guys there to have a run. Tom Gilbert was there from Victoria with his dad. It was nice to have a junior final, but was just a small group.
Yeah. And Dion, I'm pretty sure Dion is a young fella from Western Australia. Am I correct in that one?
Dion on finishing third there. I think Dion's.
Yeah.
I'm going to get myself in trouble here, Mitch, but I thought Dion was from India with his dad.
Right. I have a feeling that he might have raced over in Western Australia for the national titles. I can't.
Right.
Once again, I might be completely wrong on that one.
Never,
but if it is,
Mitch, never.
No, exactly. I can't be wrong. But if it is the same Dion that I'm thinking of, it is good to see that they're out racing in bigger events and stuff. Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. Thank you, Martin. Apologies, we got that wrong. Yeah. And a couple of the guys from Korea that talked about there being a good crew from Korea there. So Yang and Kim there in the junior final. Yeah, it's good.
All right, we'll go over to Nitro Truggy.
Yeah, so this was one of the great stories of the event. Plamen Petrov from Bulgaria, he saw a race at Manila on video 3 or 4 years ago. I think he was just new to RC at the time and said to himself, I want to go race there one day. So, racing at Manila has been literally on his RC bucket list from watching a video of the racetrack. And so he came, and did a great job. Like, it was really strong through qualifying. It was really probably he and Jackson, and then a little gap to Shane, and then, a gap to the rest of the field. But a great story for Plemen to come all the way from Bulgaria to the Philippines, to Manila. It was really strong. He and Jackson did go head to head pretty hard a couple of times, including in the final at times. Jackson was stronger in practice, but just kind of ran into some little bits and pieces of trouble through qualifying, and that let Plemon kind of get away with the qualifying, and then he got away in the final as well. I think Jackson might have got caught up on turn one and had to fight back from there. It got a bit helter-skelter through the middle of the race between the two of them, and then Plemon a little bit too strong over the back half, got away to, I think it's about an 8-second win in the end. And then Kiwi Shane O'Connor. Shane was awesome. He's such a good fella, and he was pretty strong as well through qualifying and finals. One of my favourite stories from the event was Shane came and saw us one morning and said, "Hey, I saw a photo you guys published of my truck from yesterday, and I could see that there was something wrong in the setup. So I changed the setup based on what I saw in the photo that you guys published, and my truck was much better this morning." So we did say drinks are on you, Shane, but we didn't cash in on that. So maybe in Brisbane we'll have to try and get Shane to take us out for a drink. No, so good crew. That was really they really were the fastest three right through qualifying and the finals. Never really looked like it was going to go any other way. Oliver Fisher probably was a little unlucky. Oliver from, I want to say, Austria was there as well, and he qualified fourth and, ran well up in the final until I think he had some kind of mechanical problem that took him out of contention. But yeah, really Plemon, Jackson, Shane, they were the fast three in truck. And so that's the way it kind of played out.
Right. I just double checked on the nationals because I had to get it out of my head. It was the same Dion that ran the 8-scale nationals over in Western Australia. I'm not sure if he is, he might be based in Sri Lanka or whether he's based in Western Australia now, whether they moved over, I'm not sure. But it was a really good family that I actually had a quick chat to after the event. Had one hell of a crash off the main straight, end up in the pit lane, almost taking out a few people wrenching on their cars, but I don't think that was completely their fault, and it's good to see that they're going to other major events as well. So that's really
they were
good to
having a
see.
good time. Yeah, they were. That's the father and son that I think I was thinking about before. Yeah.
No, really cool family. Had a really good chat with them after the 8-scale nationals over in Perth. We'll flick on over to electric buggy.
So electric buggy qualifying, kind of Ongaro got there in the end, but Yorn was right there, Alex was right there. Going into the last round, it could have gone to any of the three of them in terms of qualifying. And then in the finals, really, Ongaro, from around about lunchtime on the Saturday, I don't think he lost another race. He was kind of halfway through qualifying round, that middle qualifying round on the Saturday. I think he talked about, working out that this is going to sound really weird, and it's the first time I've heard it, that his wheels were too soft, and in the heat, the wheels were flexing too much, and he was kind of getting in trouble as the run went on. And so he switched to a different brand of wheel, same tyre, I believe, same tyre and compound, to my knowledge. And from then on, so it could be that, could just be him getting to grips with the track, but, really was pretty spectacular through the rest of the weekend. So got the qualifying, and then, I'm going to just grab the A final kind of results here so I can make sure I'm not lying, but I think he won the first two. He did won the first two, and kind of got not easily, but just held a little bit of a margin. So I think it was Alex that was second in the first one. In the first final, and then Hara in the second one. And the second one, Ongaro really did run away a little bit, got away to about a 10-second win over Hara. And then Yorn took A3, which bumped him up onto second on the podium. Like I said earlier, Yorn was spectacular. He was, one of the first to try and do there's a couple of really long jump combinations that he was probably the first to try and do that people were making in electric, but not in nitro. And so we saw him start to do that on Friday or even Thursday, late in practice. And it was quicker, but it was a little bit risky. So, he was the guy that was kind of having a crack at that. And eventually that really forced everyone to follow suit, right? So this is probably an interesting, I don't want to get too much into a deep analysis of these races, given we're so well into this stream already. But by the time of A2, or even through A1, it became really clear that if you weren't doing that long jump combination, in electric, you were going to sort of get monstered a little bit. And that started to happen with Alex. And towards
Yep.
the end of A1, he was really getting monstered from behind by people like Yorn, and Pavidis was doing it. Lutz was starting to do it. Ongaro was starting to do it. Even Hara was starting to do it. And at that point, Alex was the only one who wasn't doing that long jump combination. And they
Yep.
really started to, it looked obvious to me that, they were going to kind of, there's paying a big price for that. There was a lot of time to be made. And so A2, he came out in the, there's one warm-up lap to the grid, and he had a crack at it in that warm-up lap. And so it kind of became obvious from the outside, at least, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him about this, that, he'd kind of worked out that, to contend for the win, he was going to have to take that risky long jump kind of combination and see if he could do that. And it bit him a little bit in A2, a couple little mistakes there. And it did bite other people as well, but it definitely was faster. And so that's probably one of the turning points in that final series, was for Alex working out at the end of A1 that he had to do that. And then, but he hadn't been practicing that, whereas some of the other guys, and Jorn's the standout, had worked out on the Thursday that was possible with the right line and the right horsepower to make that really long jump combination. So that was a little interesting story that kind of went along the way in electric. But really, I mean, out front Ongaro was just too good. Neumann, Benadzik was, and then Hara was right there. He was right there the whole time. Lutz and Pavidis, thereabouts. Pavidis looked probably not quite as good not quite as comfortable in electric as he did in nitro. And then Dino Jacinto, one of the kind of more local drivers, was kind of right well up in the mix as well. That's the top half a dozen or so in electric.
Yeah. The racing from electric buggy was quite literally electric throughout the weekend. You can see the different placings, other than Ongaro taking the first two runs. The placements were all over the place. Your seconds and ninths with Yatsushi Hara, and a fourth, and to wrap it up, Ryan Lutz with a fourth, fifth, and a third, and he ends up in fifth. That's pretty tough to have two really good results and end up all the way down in P5. And the same, Pavidis as well, the sixth and a second, and end up down in the sixth. Like that is harsh when it comes down to points.
Tough. Yeah. And Mitch, the other thing which I think is probably just is worth a quick mention is, our Kiwi brothers from across the ditch. We saw, those guys came to that kind of track. From what I've been able to see from New Zealand, this is totally unlike anything they've ever raced on before.
Yeah.
And so it really did take them a little bit to kind of get their heads around it. And there's a kind of cool story which Logan Toyer can tell. I won't tell that for him, about getting himself into a little bit of tyre gluing problems. But Jaden Jamieson, Logan Toyer, and Casey Dawson all really did get it together, and all three were in the Electric A final. And that's pretty cool to see. And those guys were obviously strong at round one in New Zealand in February.
Yep.
They've all been to Brisbane now for Pine Hills, and this will be their third time on an oil track. So I think worth keeping an eye on the three of them when July rolls around. But it was really nice to see them in the main.
Yeah, I don't exactly right. And Toya, as you mentioned there, Toya has done a fair bit of work now at Pine Hills. Been to a couple of events there, so I'd say he definitely will be quick. Be good to see if I have got it up here, but I haven't checked if Jaden Jameson is coming over for the Brisbane event. He is. Perfect.
Yep, and Casey as well. So a good crew.
Awesome. Yep. I'm sure Shane O'Connor and stuff will be there as well.
Yes. Yep.
So it will be a good crew of New Zealand drivers once again coming over for the event. So really looking forward to the upcoming event. But as we go on to the main category, let's go back to race results and bring up the overall results for Nitro Buggy.
Yeah, and it was the main event. There's sometimes where electric's bigger, but really this is a Nitro Buggy race, the Masters, and that's kind of how it felt all week. It really did feel like it was about this event. And they run a 60-minute final. That's been a tradition at this event for a long time now. So that doesn't happen very often in the world of RC. It happens at the Worlds. In Australia, we do that at the Nationals.
Yep.
But at the Masters, that's kind of what that's what it is.
Mm.
The shape of this event, really, the shape of this race was really set when Ongaro ran out of fuel coming into the second fuel stop. So around that 14-minute mark, he ran out of fuel just a couple of corners shy. and dropped from, he was comfortably in the lead at that point and dropped to a lap and change behind Hara. So he probably lost in the order of 40 or 50 seconds of track time. You can see there on the screen, he dropped, right back to, I think, about 7th or 8th or something.
Yeah, down to P8.
And I got to admit that, when I saw that happen, I thought, well, that's probably that. But he was dynamite, like spectacular from there on for the rest of the final. So, we were trying to watch the battle at the front of the field, and we're trying to kind of follow that on the stream. And, we're trying to pay attention to what's going on there while keeping an eye on his lap times. And, Ongaro was the speed with which he recovered through the field. So I think it was 25 minutes from when he flamed out to when he retook the lead. So it was around 14 minutes when he flamed out, and then it was around 39 minutes or thereabouts when he got back to the front. So let's call it 25 minutes to make up 50 seconds, and that will give you an idea of just how fast he was relative to the rest of the field. He was dynamite. And, by about the halfway point, it was pretty clear that he was going to get back to the front and that, he would win the race. Not to say that other people weren't fast, but he was spectacular. Knows the track really well. He's won, I think this is his 4th win there, something like that. He's won multiple times, and he's the best in the world right now. So, no surprise. For the rest of the field, Hara kind of assumed the lead when Ongaro flamed out and held the lead for a long period of time. Right through, and he was driving really beautifully. Mitch, you would have seen it on the on the footage. He looked strong. He looked consistent. He was he was quick. There weren't many mistakes. He got caught up a little bit in traffic around halfway, and that kind of cost him a bit of time. There's one or two kind of untidy laps where he just got caught in some traffic. But it really looked like, he was either going to win or finish second. And really then, with about 10 minutes to go, I said to the guys, we were all hooked up on microphones trying to manage the coverage. And I remember saying, Hara's in trouble, but I can't tell why. I can't see what's wrong with his car, but his lap times have dropped off. And Pavidis by this stage had worked his way through to third and was really coming home really fast. Like Ryan was flying in that last 10 minutes. And so we did talk to Hara afterwards and say, did something go wrong with the car in that last 5 to 10 minutes? And he said, first hour main that he's done that he can remember, he just ran out of ability to drive. He said he was exhausted. So, that 1 hour main, it's an endurance event, and that's kind of how he described it. That's his kind of confession, not mine. He said to us, I was just exhausted and I just couldn't drive anymore. And you can see those little mistakes creep in that last 10 minutes that had not been there all week. And so, that probably, cost him that second spot, but still finishing on the podium. And like I said, Pavidis was dynamite in the last, really the back half of the race, but particularly that last 10 minutes, he was awesome. Probably is worth just, noting that Sparko had a good crew there, and there was the factory guys were there supporting Ryan, and so they did a really nice job getting that car up and running, and had some good speed in that final. So Hara was third, Neumann was thereabouts. He was in and around the top 3 the whole run, finishing 4th, and then Christian 5th. And Christian had been up in certainly 3rd for a period of time. I can't remember if he got to 2nd, but he was right up in the mix as well. And then Alex and Ryan, who both had, as we talked about, flame out kind of troubles through the run.
And we saw after Ungaro's flame out, we actually saw that Alex Bernardic was catching up on Atsushi Hara as well. They were looking like they were going to have a really good battle at the same time as Ryan Pavidis was catching up on the both of them. It was really looking like it was going to be a really nice, good tussle for the top 3 positions, whilst Ongaro is still working his way through at that point as well. So it was looking really, really good for a while. And unfortunately, Alex ended up having his flame out or fuel issue. And it did take that sort of a little bit of a turn where, as you say, Atsushi Hara dropped off a little bit. Ongaro had come back through. Pavidis looking quicker and quicker especially towards the end. And it all sort of just panned out a little bit more gradually, I think, than what it looked like it could have at about the halfway point. It was getting really exciting towards a halfway point.
I see Martin's just dropped a comment in about shocks going off, so I'm not sure if he's talking about Hara there or whether he's talking about Christian's car going off a little bit. So maybe Martin, you can give us a bit more detail there in the comments.
Yeah, and a
Yeah.
couple actually. Whilst you mentioning the comments there, a couple more on I've forgotten his name again now. Dion lives in Sri Lanka, and they travel where they can. So they're
Yeah.
traveling from Sri Lanka to get to events, which is a hell of an effort. Went to the Nationals, like I said, last year, and then over to the Philippines Masters. Ian Ford said about the tire issue that we were talking about with Ongaro when we were talking about potentially changing over tires and stuff. He said soft rims happens all the time in the heat, so could be part of it for sure.
Yeah.
Deza Jones jumped on in. G'day, Deza. Good to see you jumping on in. And as you say there, Martin saying shocks went off. So,
Yeah.
and that was for
Hurry.
Hara. He was
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay. Yeah. It was a great event, and it was a great race. That final was awesome. Again, like Zach was thereabouts the whole run. He finished inside the top 10, just in front of Jaden Jamison. So I think that gives the Australian over Kiwi bragging rights to Australia. We kind of got those guys under control in Manila.
yeah,
And then, Plemon was in the final. Oliver Fisher was in the final again. Jamil Dela Cruz did a nice job to make the final, along with Adrian Wicasanto and Dino Jacinto, a couple of the local or more local kind of names. I think Adrian might be Indonesia. I think if I've got that right, he might be involved with the club that's running round 4 of the series.
right,
It was a good event, really good event.
yeah. So yeah, that pretty much does wrap up everything we have to talk about for the Asian Buggy Championships. Unless you have anything else to input into it.
No, I think I've talked long enough about that race, Mitch. It was awesome, great event, really good to be a part of, and I'd encourage anyone who wants to do an international race to put that pretty high on your list for 2025. It's going to be only better again next year. Fun track, lovely people, wonderful people, great food, crazy traffic, insane. Mostly you just close your eyes when you're in the taxi or on the bus. Don't look. Just best not to know what's happening on the roads. That was good.
Yeah. All right. We'll now jump on into King of the Mountain, which was last weekend, held up on the mountain of Toowoomba. Like I said before, one of my favorite events of the year. Just the track, the facility, what this crew, really small crew up there manages to do for what is realistically one of the best events of the year, in my honest opinion. It is one of my favorite events of the year, and it might be a little bit of bias coming into there as I help them out, but at the same time I do very little when it comes to the actual preparation and planning sort of side of things. And I've raced this event most of the past few years. I think for the past 5 years I've been a racer there, and last year I helped out a little bit, but this year I helped out quite a fair bit more. And the amount of work that these guys put into the actual track and everything to actually get this event off the ground and do it every single year is pretty impressive, to say the least, for such a small club.
It does remind me, Mitch, and you would have seen this at other places as well, that sometimes the country clubs, there's so many country clubs that just put on, they put in so much hard work, and the hospitality is amazing. The tracks are always fun. So in Queensland terms, Toowoomba, where we were last weekend for King of the Mountain, is one example. Rockhampton's another. Or regional, I should say, rather than country. Those are 2 big regional cities. At the same time as we were in Toowoomba, I think round 2 of the Raw Speed series was on. Again at a country club. So it's awesome to go to those country club run events and support them. I know over the history of the sport that I've been involved in, some of the very best clubs and tracks and race meetings have happened at some of those regional and country events. Miriam Vale in Queensland, famously, tiny little club, built the most phenomenal racetracks. Some of the very best racetracks I've ever seen anywhere in the world, in a tiny little central Queensland town. Toowoomba's not a tiny little town. It's a city of, 80 or 90,000 people, whatever it is. It's a city, but it's still kind of got that regional feel about it.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Awesome to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a very natural surface, so it can get pretty rough out there, can get dusty. It can also be quite loamy if there is sort of a bit of moisture from the night before. We didn't really experience too much of that this year. I find, I wasn't there on Friday, so I can't vouch for Friday. But when I turned up on Saturday, the track, whilst it had quite a lot of moisture in it, it was already fairly hard packed, so it wasn't any real loam to it. It didn't break up once it sort of, got cars on it pretty early in the morning. So it was pretty hard packed from the get-go, which is
Yeah.
A little bit different, I think, for the King of the Mountain. Usually we do turn up to a track that's either one end of the scale or the other. It's either fairly dry but hard packed, or like last year where it was wet, very wet. But and that's just kind of part of the event. It's a natural surface, and that's the best part of the event, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't get there until Saturday morning either, just for a quick practice. But the guys were telling me that it had been pretty dry and pretty dusty on the Friday.
Okay.
And we just got that little bit of rain each night, which kept the moisture in the track, until sort of afternoon. The last few races in the afternoon were starting to dry out. But otherwise, nice surface, kind of low to medium grip, fun layout. And that really interesting combination of a huge long front straight. I mean, how long we're on full throttle, I'd hate to count. But then a quite tight, twisty infield. So, kind of relatively low speed, average corner speed, but a really fast, long straight. Huge, big flat sweeper into a really long straight. So it's a really interesting, and you could hear certainly the nitro classes. Those engines were revving their heads off by the end of that front straight. It was good fun.
First year in a while, I think they've had the entire length full straight. I think last year they had about 2 lanes from the full straight that they had a sort of a hairpin corner. So they definitely did a fair bit of change and stuff on this layout to make it, I guess, that longer straight and a high speed first turn, but it was still a 90-degree first turn with very unforgiving piping as well. So I know a lot of guys found that first turn pipe quite unforgiving, and I didn't see any breakages, to be fair on it. But it did not give much at all, to say the least. So that was an interesting point from the weekend. It was a really, really fun looking layout. I had a quick couple laps afterwards, and I really enjoyed the layout. And that was with a nitro buggy as well, so I don't do too much of that.
No, it was good. It was a little bit bumpy, but not wild, not wildly bumpy, not Silver State rough kind of, but certainly more bumpy than the Brisbane tracks that I've been doing my racing at over the last couple of years. And that just added to it, right? So, it forced a little bit of puzzling over setup and tyre choice and so on. But yeah, good, really fun event. Again, a great kind of hospitality around the event. Good catering crew and, the local team led by Jay and Michael and others, Lee, and, a number of people were fantastic at, just hosting the event. It's again a good one. If you want to, do a race next year, put that on your list as a really fun, event to be at.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And Lee does some really good photos. I know you got some really good photos from the event as well. These are the photos from Lee from the event. Lee's one of the committee members there, and just to show off what the track was like out there, and the racing was really good. Didn't quite have the big names as what we have had in the past, but it still had quite a very similar amount of entries to previous years. And I would say the overall racing was equivalent to majority of other years, if not all other years. It just once again didn't have that high level of racing such as Alex Nardzic or the top level drivers there. So nonetheless, the racing was really, really strong between all categories. You had Turner and Greg in Truggy, and they were also battling it out in Buggy as well. They were inseparable the entire weekend. Darren Perry was really quick in electric buggy. All the way through the field, we had good battles, nitro buggy as well, and we'll go through all that in just a second as well. What was your takeaways from the event?
Yeah, look, at a fun track, like that country hospitality that I talked about, and it's I think weirdly, after having raced together for so many years, it's the first time that I've travelled to an event and stayed in a hotel room with Steve and Darren Perry. We've known each other since the late 80s, if you can believe that. But this is the first time we've ever travelled together. Oh, no, it was okay. It was all right. One of us snored. I'm not going to say who. No, it was good. It was a really fun event. I'm glad I went. I'm running a new car to me at the moment, and so it was nice to be on a different kind of a track. That demands different things from the cars, and I'm not at the front of the field, and I'm not as competitive or as ferociously determined as I might have been in my younger years. So for me, it was a really fun weekend. I had some nice races, had some good close battles with a few people, some that I know, some that I'd not met before. Yeah, it was fun. In terms of the racing itself, I think, in electric, buggy, you'd say, Darren is he's the class of the field, and so he put himself in harm's way in round 1 of qualifying and in A1 in the finals, but then from there, both in qualifying and in the finals, was too strong, just too good. So that's kind of probably about what we would have expected. TJ Kripiri was second in electric buggy and in nitro, actually, and he's a quality young driver, kind of emerging from Queensland at the moment, and famously his family have built maybe one of the best tracks in the country as his practice track on the farm. Not too many people have had the chance to see it, although Kyle McBride shared some video from it last year. But TJ is making, kind of every effort to kind of work his way up the field, and at times in electric and in nitro, he was super fast. And then, from there in electric, as you said, Greg Lander and Mark Turner kind of went at it pretty hard. And the other one I thought, who did a really nice job was David Sharp. And Liam McCowan-Smith were a couple of guys who just are always there and thereabouts. And so it was nice to see them kind of in the mix in electric buggy as well. I've seen you kind of scrolling through a few photos there. There's some I haven't seen yet, so I have to go. Have a look at, Lee. I had lens envy. I've got to tell you, I was walking around and just looking at Lee's camera, going, "Oh, I want one of those." Well, I had my little tiny lens.
Definitely a big upgrade. So
yeah,
like previous years, I don't think she's had anywhere near the quality of camera as what she had this year, and man, it has paid off.
Yeah, I'll look forward to having a look at those photos. But so there's on the screen. There's the electric results. DP winning A2 and A3 to get, really what was a deserved win over TJ, and then it was pretty ferocious from there back in the rest of that A final field down to a C final in electric buggy, and again. One of the things you do see at rural events is people come from far and wide. And so, with some guys there from central Queensland, people have travelled a long way, people from Brisbane and around the southeast, and obviously the local crew. I do just want to kind of quick shout out to Andy Nelson. You see him finishing there in 10th place. And that's Andy's first A final in electric 8 scale buggy. He's only been running 8 scale for a couple of months down predominantly at Logan. But for those who've not been around the sport kind of for a long time, Andy Nelson was one of the out-and-out superstars in Australia in the late 80s and into the early 90s. And I think has had top 10 round qualifying results at World Championships in Detroit. And has been in as high as, I think, a C or maybe even a B final in Detroit, and wasn't far off that at the Worlds in St Ives in 1989. So he is a guy that, in that era when he was very serious about it, along with people like Andrew Bolton, there's all these kind of names of, Darren Campbell, those kind of guys who were at the front at that time. And Andrew Nelson on his day was as good as anyone in Australia over that period. And I certainly remember running into him, a ferocious Andy Nelson driving a Traxxas 2-wheel drive on a racetrack in Canberra one year, maybe 92, where he demolished a national standard field. So really lovely to see him back on the racetrack. He's been doing a little bit of racing at Chargers, and again, not kind of as serious as he once was, but you can see in his driving, he's really improving, and he drove really nicely on the weekend. So I loved seeing Andy in the final. So that's just a little story there for those who might see a name Andy Nelson and not know who that guy is. Next time you're at a racetrack, just ask him about Detroit. Ask him about racing at the Worlds in 1991 in Detroit, what that event was like. He's got some great stories. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. Yeah, I'll definitely having a chat to him next time I see him.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. That's electric buggy. We will flick on over. Actually, we'll quickly chat about your own results. You had a really good qualifying run. I was actually down low thinking there's a potential top 3 here for Scotty.
I don't know whether to sorry, I'm gonna all right, it's confession time, Mitch. The car was really good. First part of qualifying, the car was really good. I was really happy with it. And then, like I said, it's a new car to me. I'm been doing some testing. It's a Sparko I've been running for Speedy RC just to play with that car. And Mick had sent me some parts to convert the shock absorbers to a longer shock setup on the car. So I thought, it's a bumpy track. I'll give that a try.
Yep, perfect time.
So before Q3, I changed the whole setup over and went out in Q3. And the car was a bit unpredictable and I couldn't work it out. And the same in A1, and I was way off the pace. And finally thought, I've obviously done something wrong when I've done this shock build. So pulled the shocks apart between A1 and A2 to discover that one of the tapered pistons was in upside down. So there you go. That's my wrenching. I should not be allowed to wrench. I need a mechanic who just wants to build me a great race car, and I'll just drive. So yeah, really shot myself in the foot. Should have left the car alone. The car was really good. It was really nice to drive, and I just thought I'll put these on to play with, and yeah, ruined it for myself with a wrenching failure of epic proportions. But,
that's not that bad, to be perfectly honest. I've done some mammoth efforts when it comes to failures when it comes to RC. I was building one of my cars, this is one of my two-wheel drive X-Rays, in front of Gary Sturdy. Now, we all know in the local region, if you know how meticulous Gary is when it comes to building a car, I built my front and rear shocks completely opposite to what they were. So the actual pistons and everything, the shock shafts, all of it went into the front. That was meant to go into the rear went into the front. And I looked at it after I built it and I thought, that looks strange. Gary took half a look at it and just laughed in my face for probably 5 minutes. So, yeah. There's a lot worse things you could have done, Scotty, and I thank you for reminding me of past instances.
Yeah, you and I together should be banned from wrenching. I think.
That's I 100% agree. Yep.
If anyone would like to be my full-time mechanic, the pay is terrible. The
work is hard,
non-existent.
Yeah.
But come see me. You can build me a race car. Yeah. No, it was fun. It was really fun. I was really glad to be there. Had a great time. And like I said right off the top of the show, I'm really loving racing at the moment. I can't get to the track as much as I'd like to, but geez, I'm really enjoying being on the track and having great battles with people I've known for years and people I've never met. So it's it's good when RC is like that.
Yeah. Over to Truggy, and this was realistically a two-car show between Mark Turner and Greg Lander. They were quite clearly quicker than the rest of the field. We had good battles all the way from third down to like eighth, though. But Turner and Lander were just in the world of their own out there. And it was good to watch them battle it out because they were within a meter every single race pretty much for the entire race.
Yeah, so Chris Lander. I'll get in trouble for that. Greg Lander was too good in the first two rounds of qualifying. Really looked quite dominant, and but Mark got going and in Q3 got a win, and then was really good in the finals. But like you said, to see those guys barely 6 feet apart across both classes, both electric buggy and electric truggy, but in this class it was for the win. Was pretty cool to watch. They go head to head every Saturday night at Logan. The Saturday Night Worlds down there in Logan, and Mark's one of those guys that just works away, and all of a sudden he's out front, and he often doesn't make mistakes once he gets out in front. So it was two good wins from him in the first two finals. He stalked Greg, stalked, and then it was a couple of really sweet passes, where you kind of thought, I don't think there's room to get that big techno truggy through there, but he did. Clean passes, and then just kind of eked away a little margin in both those finals over the last few minutes. So yeah, he was too good. And Greg was good. Jay Denman, one of the local crew in third, and Graham in fourth there is one of the drivers at the Logan Club in Brisbane as well. Yeah. And he was really
Man, and some of those passes you mentioned there from both Turner and Greg, but I would say predominantly from Turner. Greg tended to be out front a little bit more, and when he was out front, he was really quick.
Yeah.
But there was gaps that were not a truggy size gap that Mark Turner somehow managed to slot a truggy in there. And I was thoroughly impressed on what is quite a tight track at Toowoomba to go too wide somewhere around some of those hairpins there. And also coming onto the straight, some of the over-under passes that were going on onto the straight were incredible. Yeah, really good battles.
Pretty to watch.
Yeah. And if I had any more voice left in me over the weekend, which I really didn't because I was still coming down off of a cold, I wouldn't have had any voice left in me at the end of the weekend.
That's good. Good to watch.
Yeah, those races were awesome. Okay, we will flick on over to the Nitro A-Main when we can find it. Actually, sorry, we'll cover off short course quickly because it was sort of a chuck-in last-minute class in a way.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch a lot of this. I mean, you obviously did, but
Yeah,
short course trucks do look awesome. So
man.
I've kind of often thought, I don't know why short course is not more popular than it is these days, because
es-
they look awesome. But yeah, you'd
Especially
have
on this big outdoor track, the four
mm,
drive short course looked like so much fun to drive.
yeah,
It wasn't really super close races. Usually when we had either Corey or Glenn or even Chris out front, we sort of, they sort of usually took off. But they looked awesome to drive. They looked awesome to battle it out when they were going side by side, wheel banging. The jumps were pretty big for them, so I was sort of struggling to get over those jumps without, Sunday, luckily we didn't have too much wind. Saturday was another story where we saw a lot of backflips going on out there. Luckily, four-wheel drive, they can sort of tame the jumps a little bit more.
yeah.
But yeah, the big old bodies on a short course tend to pick up a bit of.
Oh, hello. I don't know if Mitch is gone, so he's left me in charge. I'm just going to keep talking until something happens here. Mitch will either appear back, or I'll find out that I'm not in the show anymore. So yeah, that was short course. We've been at Toowoomba for King of the Mountains. That's what we're talking through. Oh, here comes Mitch back. He's back.
That was me. That was
I was
all
just
my bad.
I was just about to move on to Nitro Buggy Mitch.
uh,
Took me a
I,
moment to work out what was happening.
Yeah, I just noped out of my own stream there. No, all right, all on you now, Scotty. I'll see you later.
All right, no
Um,
trouble at all.
I pressed the back button instead of and a
Yeah,
different
don't do that.
button.
Don't do
Yeah,
that.
no, it does not like it at all. Clearly, Nitro. Yep, we'll flick on over to that. Hopefully, we
Yeah,
can
so
bring that up.
Nitro Buggy is the class that is the King of the Mountain award is given. We've talked a little bit about the history of this race and some of the people that have won it. That is the kind of King of the Mountain class. It wasn't as big as electric numerically, and and what we got to see there were some names who are probably thereabouts, but don't often get to fight for the outright win at some of the really big races. And so we really impressive David Sharp in qualifying. I think David's based in Toowoomba, but races a little bit there and a little bit at Logan. And he looked really strong, looked really good right through qualifying to snaffle that TQ. And then Dean Ross is, Dean's a guy who lives up in central Queensland, a little town called Emerald. Doesn't get to the racetrack all that often, but he's a really quality driver. We saw Dean in the A final at the Queensland Champs at Logan earlier in the year. We had that sort of fast half a dozen kind of young guys plus Darren Perry. But then Dean was kind of the next in that next group. So was in the final. And so he's one that, is always worth keeping an eye on when he gets to a racetrack. He's running the Mayako, so not too many of those around Southeast Queensland at the minute. But he looked really good, and got to the lead, I think, on about the second corner of the A final, and pretty much it was shut the gate from there. He burst away to a probably 10 or 15 second lead quite early, and then he really just sat on that lead through the rest of the final and really looked really good. Not too many mistakes, and on that track over again a 60-minute final. That's the 45-minute final, wasn't it?
Yep.
So traditionally long final there, 45 minutes. Dean looked really, really good. TJ, on the other hand, went from, he'd qualified fourth, but by the end of the first lap was almost last.
Yeah.
And so we saw TJ drive, just one of those kind of all-time classic fight-back drives. So, he worked his way back through the field, and probably within the last 10 minutes or so was starting to just get close enough to Dean to put a little bit of pressure on to make Dean have to sort of just pay attention over that last 10 minutes and make sure that he didn't make mistakes. The margin had been out as high as 15 or 20 seconds, and it was down as low as kind of 5 or 7 seconds at points over those last few minutes as the pit stops ebbed and flowed. So
Yeah.
TJ getting home in second, and then David had also got into trouble early and he recovered to third. So that was the shape of the front three. Quality drive from Dean, got the lead early and really, didn't give anyone a chance to get back in it.
No, exactly right. And Dean actually didn't even run Nitro Buggy last year. He ran over in the Truggy class, and he won the Truggy
right.
class last year.
Okay.
Because I went back through the results of last year, and I thought it was strange he didn't have a run in Buggy. So I feel as if he's going for some sort of trifecta where he just takes out the Truggy class one year, the Nitro Buggy class one year, and maybe the Electric Buggy class next year or something. So
I first met him running an electric buggy at a Tasmanian Championships in about 2010. So he's got EP buggy heritage, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go.
I,
So
I don't know
gone
what's happened to my camera,
Yeah.
Mitch, but it's frozen on one of the all-time great facial expressions. So
Perfect. Yeah, that's how we are now.
I don't know if I should leave the studio and come back in. If you want me to do that,
If you want, mate, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll drop you out and
I'll
bring
be
you back
back.
in. Yeah, you'll be back. Yeah, so Dean Ross having a good run in Nitro, as we mentioned there, as Scotty mentioned there. TJ, a really rough first lap, as we can see from the lap counter and that sort of side of things, all the way down to P9 from the first lap. Every lap from there on bumped up a place, 8th, 7th, 6th, and then held on for a couple of laps. He stayed around that sort of 6th spot for a fair while. There we go. We'll get Scotty back in here. Stayed around that sort of 6th spot for quite a while before being able to sort of merge back on through into the race once again. So it was quite a fair bit of a gap between the sort of 6th to 8th place drivers at that point. So that's why it did take quite a while for him to be able to merge back up into that top 5 fight. And then at every 3 laps or so after that, he just sort of picked off another place until he was up to about P2, battling for, realistically P2, P3. It would have been really interesting to see, I'd say, TJ from the start if he had a good start.
Yeah,
TJ
Dean would have been pretty cool if they'd both gotten a clean start.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great drive. Good fight back. Yeah.
The lap times from both drivers were very, very similar. TJ was slightly quicker, I'm pretty sure, on fastest lap.
Yeah.
But I think probably on consistency wise, so a 33.3 fast lap from Dean, I'd say would be quite similar. 33.4. So yeah, very similar from TJ. It would have been a really good race. Consistency wise, Dean Ross was probably a little bit more consistent, but TJ had the ability to sort of pump out a few more hot laps in a row. It would, without that sort of first 2 laps of issues for TJ, I think it would have been a really, really interesting race.
Yeah. We saw in A1 of electric buggy what he can do when he gets out in front too. Like, he in that race, once he got to the lead, he was fast. He was gone. Good young, good family, good young driver who's making his way through the field and be a lot to look forward to from TJ over the next few years. And running TLR, not too many of those in Southeast Queensland. Gopal also in the final in a TLR. So nice to see that co going well.
And both the cars look pretty good out there throughout the entire weekend. TJ had a couple of drums, I think, with an electric buggy. I think it was coming to electrical gremlins more than it was the actual car itself. But, pretty good weekend.
Yeah, it's good.
It's a birthday man. Look at this. Come on, birthday man. The old man, old man's birthday today. He's turning 130.
They didn't have RC cars when I was a kid.
Oh, well.
You off for dinner?
Yeah.
Good on you.
Okay.
Now we've got the dog in here
See
as
you
well.
guys.
Take care, old man. Jeez. So yeah, it really, really interesting sort of play outs throughout the weekend, all the way through the field. Steve Perry having a really bit of a struggle when it came to qualifying. Did you were sitting pretty close to Steve? Did you find out what was going on there?
Yeah, just some little bits and pieces really that just kind of didn't go his way, and a couple of it's one of those events. Yeah, we all have them. Where you just put yourself in harm's way, and so I think he was he 9th, so he had to bump his way through the B final, and but drove a really good A final. He was another one who just kind of worked his way. For a time, it looked like he was well in the fight for the podium. He was riding in a heavy, ferocious battle with David Sharp, and I think Gopes might have been in that for a little while as well. And then Anthony Gaunt came on strong later on. So Steve was right in the middle of that fight, but drove a really nice final all the way through, and to go from I think qualified 8th or 9th or whatever it was, and through the B final, and then do a really nice job.
Yeah, so it bumped up from the B main, started off first and ended up first, but it didn't go completely his way. I know he was down the order a little bit at one stage, ended up only 5 seconds in front of Jay Denman, another 10 seconds in front of Ian Ford, and a couple laps ahead of 4th place Vaden Christensen.
Yeah.
bumping onto the A. But coming into the A main just seemed like almost different car, different driver. Everything seemed to look a lot better. So yeah, Steve's just mentioned there a wrong diffs. So and I think we've now lost Scotty. So it's playing around the field at the moment, the old internet sort of side of things tonight. So yeah, wrong diffs from Steve Perry. So that makes a bit more sense. And actually, that's a good thing. TJ jumped into, well, not a good thing. TJ jumped into the water on his track, which would probably be the reason as to why TJ was having a couple of electrical gremlins.
There you go.
Definitely wouldn't help. So that was before the King of the Mountain. Yeah, I'd say that probably wouldn't help. Thoughts on that one, Scotty? Electric and water don't mix too well.
Electric and water don't mix. No, they don't.
No.
Yeah, that's
No.
not good.
So yeah, hopefully the car's all sorted now. It seemed to run pretty well come the finals and stuff. So
Yeah.
But yeah. That pretty much covers off results, at least for the King of the Mountain. Overall event outlook. Looking forward to next year's event again.
Yeah, I'd go back for sure. It's a really fun event. You know, we talked about that hospitality, fun track, and a different kind of racetrack. So, you know, for me, it was a good event to be at. I'm glad I went, and I'd go back for sure. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite in the calendar year.
Yeah.
And it was good to be able to help out with them, and look forward to helping out probably a bit more next year. I sort of a bit rushed for time at the end there, and it'd be good to have a proper sort of outlook of what times everyone will be racing and stuff when it comes down to it. Yeah, that'll all be worked in next year, and with any luck, have a little bit more time on my hands and a little bit, and at least be a little more prepared for it. But yeah, the club itself, they did an awesome job when it comes to facilities and stuff. There's such a small committee there, and a couple of helping hands realistically, that they've done an awesome effort on the track once again.
Yeah.
So, maybe actually Ian Ford says maybe 2 events a year people are keen. I wouldn't rule it out. I'm sure there'd be people wanting to go to it. King of the Mountain's definitely the sort of the prestige event, but I'm sure a lot of people would still be keen on another event up there for sure.
Carnival of Flowers. So the Toowoomba the city hosts the Carnival of Flowers, and historically there was an RC car race held in conjunction with the Carnival of Flowers. So what I should say is the last time I was in Toowoomba for an RC car race was 1986, Mitch. So there was the Carnival of Flowers was a very well loved tent scale electric off road race every year in Toowoomba. So there you go, Toowoomba crew. Let's have a Carnival of Flowers race. Yeah,
that'd be good. That's 10 years before I was born, Scotty.
Shut up, Mitch.
Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Okay, we will start moving on. We're going to shuffle through this next part here pretty comfortably because the results and stuff, that's what takes the most time up. And I will say that with a smile on my face, knowing it's a complete lie.
Sure.
Upcoming events. We'll quickly run over a couple of upcoming events. Obviously, the big one to talk about at Chargers RC is the Queensland titles.
Yep.
That's going to be an epic event. As we mentioned before, massive amount of entries for stadium truck. Bring a stadium truck. Let's have a massive stadium truck race. We missed out on the truck event gone past. Was it about a month ago now? Unfortunately, got washed out.
Yep.
So bring it back out. We can have a rerun of it virtually. Doing some big effort, big works and stuff there. I actually took a drone out to Chargers the other day and had a little fly around on a practice drone.
Yep.
And the works that they're doing there for the new off-road track, the dirt track or the vintage track, it looks really good.
Yeah, so let's just quickly talk about the facilities. The Queensland Champ's coming up, as you said. So due to have a club race there tomorrow, weather pending, as I look out the window to see what's happening outside. And that'll be the last race on the current layout. So my understanding is a new layout going down for the Queensland Champ. So that'll be a relatively fresh layout for everybody. And then, as you said, there's a whole lot of work going on in the facility to add a second full-size racetrack. So the existing 6-surface track, will remain sort of pride of place as the main modern racetrack, but a full-size natural dirt track going down in place of what's been the little kind of stopgap temporary track that's been there for a while now. Predominantly focused around vintage racing, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if, there's some interest in running more modern cars on a very different kind of surface.
Yep.
My understanding is the layout for that new track is going to be based on the 1997 World Champs track from the Ranch Pit Shop. So it'll have a kind of similar, it's not quite exactly the right shape to mirror it exactly, but a similar kind of feel. And a, an influence by that 97 Worlds track. So I think the guys are talking about, a couple of new shipping containers coming in, a new kiosk area, new driver stand for the vintage track, and, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe some lights on a permanent basis. It'd be nice to be able to do some nighttime racing more regularly down there. But all of that is to happen after the Queensland Champs. So you mentioned it, Queensland Champs a couple of weeks away, big entry already. Some big names of interest. So we're seeing Chris Sturdy back. Chris took a break at the end of last year, and got to the end of 2023 and just said, "Look, I'm pretty worn out. I'm going to take some time off." And at that stage, didn't really know how long that would be. But he, had 4 or 5 months off, and he's been back the last few weeks and really loving being back on the racetrack. And so, he will, without question, start favourite. He's the best 10-car driver in the country anyway, and it's his home track. So, even having had some time off, he's going to be one of the guys to absolutely beat. The other, in modified, we haven't got a lot of interstate entries yet, but there's a couple that I think are really interesting. One of them is South Australia's Damon Davis-Perry, and Damon's been having a good year, and, we saw him running right up front at the Australian Carpet Series last weekend in Sydney on a high grip surface. He runs on carpet, a high grip surface at his home track in Adelaide. So coming to a high grip 6 surface track, I think is going to suit him really well. And I'd be, if you want to have kind of a little sneaky bet on someone who might just be able to really bring it to Chris Sturdy, Damon's the kind of guy who might just do that. So I think he's on the entry list. I hope he makes it. I think that'll be pretty cool to watch. Then we've got Phoenix Eggleton, who doesn't live locally but is one of the Chargers regulars. The family are really heavily involved, and Phoenix is working his way through the field in modified. His first year in mod, again, ran kind of well up at the Carpet Series last weekend. We've seen him be competitive everywhere. They know this track really well, and so he's an out and out podium kind of contender. And then you've got other the regular local fast guys, people like Matty Lawrence, Rob Maycock, Ben Sterling, some of those guys who really know the track and the facility well. And so that modified will be pretty cool to watch. But I reckon we might see this kind of Sturdy v Davis Perry kind of fight out front. I don't know, Mitch. What do you think? Have I missed anyone? That's what I'm looking at.
Rob Maycock was quick when it came to racing last weekend. Well, not last weekend, but the weekend before. So I definitely wouldn't rule out Rob being, in the hunt. I wouldn't say probably contesting for a win. Couldn't rule it out though. If anything,
podium,
potentially
definitely in the mix for the podium.
But definitely showing a lot of skill from the last club meet. I recently went down to Sydney to have a race on the carpet down there as well. So he's getting a heap of race time in. So with any luck, he has those setups saved up, and he can chuck those setups back into the cars and go straight back out on track and be nice and quick again.
And even allowing for a new layout, let's be if we're honest about it, the Chargers regulars, it's a particular kind of surface, and the guys who run there all the time, have that little edge because it's a surface unlike anything else in the country at the moment. So, somebody like Rob, who is fast anyway, wherever he goes, and knows that surface and knows how to get the most out of his car there. Definitely a good shout to be well in the mix.
Yeah. Ben Sterling, I think, will be pretty quick if he can get a hang of the car. I think there'll be a couple of drivers that'll should be comfortably in the AMA, and on a good day will be not far off the top 3. That's for sure. So I think the racing will be strong. I know there has been whispers of Ray coming up. I'm not sure how likely that is. I know that they were sort of waiting to see, how the weather looks, whether they have time available, that sort of side of things.
I think Lockie's in year 12, isn't he, as well? So exams is an issue, and
So a lot of stuff going on there as well. But with any luck, if they can get up here, it would be good to see a couple more interstate drivers coming up for it. Good opportunity. If they don't come, it's a great opportunity for drivers, slightly lower down the order to grab some extra results.
Get some world points.
Matty Lawrence says Ray said he's coming.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be good to see. Be good to see Ray and good to see Lockie if they both make it for sure. And that'll, if those two make it, that'll definitely hot things up right at the front of the field. And they've been to Chargers enough times now that they absolutely know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, they'll come with a good setup right out of the box, and yeah, they don't. There's no learning to be done in terms of the surface and the way that the cars work there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly right. So looking like a really good event. Looking forward to it. I'll be on the mic for the event. Don't know if I'll be racing as of yet. Are you going to have a run, Scotty? You racing any classes?
I don't have any 10 scale cars at the moment. I was offered a loan car, but I'm kind of working more than full time just at the minute. So taking a couple of days to be at the racetrack is a little bit tricky. I'm hoping to go to Sydney for the winter champs out at Penrith a couple of weeks after that. So
Right.
I'll get out to Chargers for some of the finals, but I don't think I'll be racing.
Yeah. What if I can find a short course to stick in your hands?
Oh, sheesh. I don't know.
Yeah. Sounds tempting, doesn't it?
Yeah. We'll see. We'll talk. We'll take this one offline, Mitch, I think.
Oh, golden. Okay. We'll move on to ABC. The next round of ABC being held at Pine Hills. Once again, oil track. Really incredible facility. Great location. Being in Pine Hills. Close enough to the airport. Plenty of accommodation around, whether it be Airbnbs or hotels. I'm really looking forward to this one. You're going to be part of the production crew once again.
Yeah.
I'm going to be running around hassling a Scotty Ernst, trying to see if I can steal a microphone off of him, shove a car in his hand or something. I don't know. I'll try and
Whatever
steal a
you got
microphone.
to do. No, look, it'll be awesome. From an event perspective, the Pine Hills crew just put on. We've seen some photos of the new layout, and there's been a little bit of practice done out there already.
Yep.
The track looks amazing. I haven't had a chance to have a run yet, but I will between now and ABC. But the hospitality, we've used that word a lot, but that's a big part of a good event. And Zach and Ty and the whole crew out there are wonderful. Great food in the canteen, good facility, really good racetrack. And it's not a sanctioned event, so it's probably, you've got to always say the Nationals is the number one race of the year in the country, and the Nationals we saw down in Adelaide just a month or two ago was pretty special. But this is going to be some race meeting. Look, let me just read the names for you, Mitch. And so this is just thinking about buggy, people who are at, a chance to either be running right at the front of the field or make an A final. And I'm going to miss some people, but how many names? So Alex Benadzik won both classes last year, has to start favourite, one of the arguably the best in the country right now and world class. Caleb Noble, unstoppable, incredibly fast, ferociously talented. Kyle McBride is entered and paid. There is a little question mark for me just because of family. I think my understanding is they're expecting the first baby a couple of weeks after that event. So hopefully Kyle makes it. Then we got Ryan Pavidis from the US. Then we've got Walker Spinrad from the US, Techno driver, a late addition to the field. Then we've got Paul Ciccarello, who's an X-ray driver from the US, probably more a front runner in the over 45s classes, but he'll be right in the mix for the final. Then we have WA, people like Aaron Dexter, Christian Walhutter. South Australia, people like Andrew Ford. He's hungry after the Nationals. Zach Foster on the podium at the Nationals, 5th at this event last year. Young guy, ferociously talented. Damon Davis Perry's coming. Jaden Edmonds is coming. The Queensland guys, people like Zach Ryan, Jackson Beale, Darren Perry, Jordan Van, Cooper Nitschke. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Then we get to New South Wales. People like Craig Lawton we're going to see for the first time. Ari Barkler's making his first journey up for the Asian Buggy Champs. Ben Panic, newly signed by AE. Lachlan Donnelly's on the list. Phoenix Eggleton. We've got the Healeys from Victoria. Oh, some Kiwis. How about Logan Toyer, Jaden Jamison, Casey Dawson, Shane O'Connor, Edward Seo from it's just like I've just been reading the list going, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be such a fantastic event. Great racetrack. The guys just put on such a good racetrack there. Almost all of those guys were here for the last event last year, last July. So most of them know the surface now and know how to kind of get the cars to work. And so we're going to see some of those guys, people like Jaden Edmonds, people like Andrew Ford, Zach Foster, Aaron Dexter, Christian Walhutter, those guys and the Kiwi guys, who now know how to be fast at this racetrack. I could talk for a long time about this race. It's going to be awesome. And that's just buggy. Then there's truggy, there's the seniors classes. There's 14 entries, who are junior drivers. So we're going to see a fantastic junior final. We saw Zach win that last year, I think, if my memory is correct. So I can't wait. It'll all be live streamed for the people who can't get there in person. The whole crew from RC Race Media going to be on board. So Tony and Matt running the show. We'll have Tate First going to be here shooting some photos with us, I believe. I think that's what's happening. O'Sheen from Red RC will be here, so we'll have full coverage on Red RC as well. And Braden Stanley's going to kind of hang around and do whatever Braden Stanley does at this event as well. So the coverage will be good. The event will be awesome. The field is just like, it is spectacular. It is a spectacular field. Probably the best buggy field in Australia for quite some years, I reckon.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. One thing I just noticed.
Got carried away there, mate.
No, I love it. One thing I noticed, which is really interesting, that the Australian Northern Territory actually isn't part of Australia anymore. Sad to say. Not
Great to
part
see
of
the
Australia.
NT guys come. The Petersons coming. Yeah, that'll be awesome. Yes, I think we've got a Tasmanian entry as well. So that might mean every state in Australia. Who I think Cohen Mould certainly used to be in Tassie. I'm not sure if Cohen still lives in Tassie, but has Tasmanian heritage. Let's call it. Let's put it that way. So that would make every state in Australia represented.
Exactly right.
It's going to be a great race. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Yeah,
epic. No, really looking forward to that one. As you say, coverage will be great as per usual. Matt Roberts actually said before about running in the I'm guessing the short course. He said he'll do it if you do it. So there you go.
Let's take this offline. I'm going to have to negotiate with my family and several employers, I think.
I'll get you a car from Mr. Dominic Blackman. Once again, he's not watching, so I can just barter out whatever I want with Dom. He'll pay you to do it.
I've got a 2009 HPI Blitz in the cupboard. We need to bring that out. No, we'll see. It'd be good to see Matty Roberts. It would be good to see Matty Roberts having a run. That's for sure. Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Only thing missing in the ABC will be fireworks. I think there'll be fireworks on track. Oh no, we do have a problem. He is watching.
Dom, I just want to say I love your work, my friend. Love your work.
He's sucking up to you now. He was talking crap about you before, Dom.
Yeah.
Wasn't me. Don't rewind.
Tell your story. Yeah.
All right. Okay, last point. We're going to talk about a couple of quick, and we're making it quick now because we're running really low on time now. 2 car releases that have recently been announced. One from Off-Road World of Things from a couple of years back, realistically. That's been just floating around. It's just happened to pop up. And one on the on-road side. So I'll get you to cover the first one, the off-road side of things, and what you know about this new or kind of new release car.
Yeah, so it's a new old car. It's not quite vintage, but this is the car from Masami and Masaki Hirosaka. I think it's called the MX4 Forever, something like that. And it's really a development of a car that Masaki and Masami designed to run in the Worlds in the early 2000s. So they took this prototype car they were on a plane to the US, literally on 9/11/2001, with this car in their suitcase, is my understanding. They were going to run it at that 2001 Worlds. That event was delayed because of 9/11, and so Masami then didn't get to run in the rerun, and he didn't get to run it again. So they've kind of had this car, this design in their pocket for 20 plus years. Masaki built so many incredible Yokomo prototype cars, and with Masami they won so many world championships through the 80s and 90s, and this was going to be the crowning glory, but they never really got to put it on a racetrack. So what they've done really, I suppose, is capture this interest in all things kind of vintage and heritage, and release this car. My understanding is they had 100 cars available for sale, and those cars are all sold out. The price was
right.
$2,500, something like that, Australian. I don't know how many of them we'll see on a racetrack, Mitch, to be honest. A lot of them will be in the hands of collectors that, will, because of the heritage of the car, because it's been designed by Masaki to win world championships in the hands of Masami, they didn't get to do it. And so really it's a vintage style car with modern technology. You can see it there in the photos, beautifully presented, beautiful carbon, beautifully machined alloy, kind of that, the layout, drivetrain, suspension geo from that era. Yeah, there you go, Anthony. 2,500 US, not even Australian. So yeah, as far as I know, they've all been sold. Whether that convinces, and I think it's GeForce that Masami's working with now that are putting this car together. Whether that convinces them to do a bigger production run, I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah.
pretty special. And with that history and that heritage, and coming from the design, the skunk works, if you like, of Masaki Hirosaka, who built so many of Masami's iconic world champs winning buggies. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cool car. Cool car.
Yeah, really interesting car. Like has a very like touring car, like a old school
Yeah.
touring car feel to a lot of the actual chassis, the center brace, that sort of side of things, which probably would have been, I guess, fairly standard for that point in time, or
Yeah.
probably somewhat futuristic for back then. But
Yeah, there was
standard
a lot
now.
of crossover between touring car and four-wheel drive drivetrain and chassis layout kind of in that era. So that
Yeah.
that stands to reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So a very interesting release
Yeah, pretty
from
cool.
those two, and definitely a bit of a throwback to possibly what could have been. And if you haven't seen the video come out from Masami's page and stuff, it's a really interesting video. It's sort of almost like a very short documentary on what happened with
Yeah.
this car, why it never really came to being,
Yeah.
raced and that sort of side of things. As you mentioned before, the 9/11 terror attacks
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
pretty much put a complete stop to what could have been with this car.
Yeah.
So
And in those years, Masami was, they were also trying really hard to win some on-road world championships, touring car and even nitro touring. And so their focus had shifted a little bit.
yeah.
Look, before you go on to the other car you want to talk about, I'll just take 30 seconds to say that, in the last 24 hours, Yokomo have announced the re-release of their original YZ834B buggy, won the World Championships in 1985, a version of that buggy in the hands of Gil Losi Jr., no less, one of the all-time great names of the sport. They've just shown some CAD photos of a re-release version of that coming on the back of the re-release of the YZ870C. I think they're talking about a Northern Summer release, so not too far away. We'll see, when it actually lands, but that's a pretty cool car as well. And around the vintage scene, that will stir up a lot of interest in its own right. Yeah.
All right, over to the last one, and there's going to be a very interesting comment from another co-host, potential co-host in the future, that's going to just pop up on the side here, and we're going to all be adults about what it's going to say. So let's bring this up. So this is actually from a local to the Gold Coast over here. Mr. Ryan Maker finally sort of sharing a couple of teaser pics of his on-road car.
Have a look at that thing.
Just a work of art. It really looks like a work of art.
I mean, it's been interesting touring car because the rules haven't changed for so long. The designs have really converged quite a lot, and this is pretty special because it's pretty different. Like, it's special because it's Australian. It's special because it's Ryan, and the quality of what he's going to produce. I'm a fan. Like, I just think, I love what he's doing with Maker, RC Maker, the company, and all the things that they do. But to have a look at touring car and go, how can we actually do something that is different, that is really going to kind of make some people sit up and take notice? I think it's just cool. Even just this one photo, you're kind of going, holy cow, I can't wait to see the rest of it. It's awesome.
So awesome. With the caption being, I think it's almost time or something along those lines. It's just it's almost time. It's just a real big tease on what I think everyone's really looking forward to seeing where this car goes and stuff. And I know Ryan has tested the car a fair few times out on a couple of different tracks. He went over to TITC. Has run it over. I believe he went over to the US. Was it for the
what effectively was the world's warm-up? So the world's in California later this year. We should do an episode on that later on in the year as we get close. But he was at the track testing on the track where the worlds will be held, and my understanding is really happy with how things went and made a lot of progress over the week that he was there. So I think I understand getting pretty close to production. I think we're going to see a lot of these cars in Australia in particular, but in other parts of the world as well. And between this and the new, I'll say it, my favorite brand, the new Shoemaker MI9 that's just landed. These are probably the two most hotly anticipated touring cars of 2024 in a world's year. They're the two cars that are, but I mean, put the Shoemaker thing aside just because I love them, but this thing from Ryan, awesome. Absolutely outstanding. I love the project. Can't wait to see one.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it on track. Yeah.
Yeah, desperate to have a bit of a chat with Ryan as well. I know I've had a chat with him in the past,
Yeah.
and I know we had a chat on that about potentially jumping on it when the car is released and talking about it. So I'm really looking forward to that, if and when it can happen. So
Yeah.
Ryan, let's go. Let's release that car. I love the look of the car already. So I'm really looking forward to what he can come out with this car, or what he has come out with this car, I should say.
Yeah, it's special.
Yeah.
Very special. The last time an Australian made competition level car whole chassis was produced was a car called the TE4 in the early 1980s, a 1/12 scale car made out of folded polycarbonate Lexan. There you go. There's a bit of history for you, Mitch.
There you go. Yeah, wow.
That I'm aware of. There might have been some other things in a large scale or
Yeah.
motorbikes and things, but in the mainstream classes that I'm aware of, the last Australian made car which won national championship races or got very close to it, the TE4, right back in the early 80s.
I think,
Useless information.
Yeah, useless but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah.
I know the Berserk has done similar thing with
Yeah.
hand cars recently,
Yeah.
but I don't know where it comes into being the whole car or just
Yeah.
a base chassis and a couple of bits and bobs. If
Yeah,
Brian
I think
Hawaiian
it's-
is,
yeah, it's
Brian
it's
Hawaiian
almost
was
a
on
whole
here,
car.
just- yeah,
I guess it's not a mainstream competition class at the moment, Pro 10.
yeah,
So I guess that's
it
what I
is
was
pretty
kind of thinking
quiet.
about.
Yeah,
But yeah, it is a beautiful looking piece of gear that
Yep.
that they've built there
Mm.
with the help of Shannon Overson, I think, in Brisbane.
yeah.
Yeah, beautiful piece of gear. Yeah, you're right. I should not have forgotten that one. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where the technicalities will come into the play on that one. So Scotty, I'll leave you the win on that one.
Thanks, mate.
Alrighty, let's wrap this up because I know you got family stuff to do. I'm apparently going to watch some fireworks in the rain. So
Excellent.
yeah, it's going to be a good night, mate. I will let you run and we will wrap this show on up. It's been a great chat with
Thanks,
you.
buddy. Thanks for having me. Sorry I talk too much. You can't help it. It's an awesome activity, hobby, sport that we do, and
Yeah,
there's so much to talk about all the time. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much, Scotty. And I'm sure we will jump on stream again and we will have another 3-4 hour long live stream and won't be able to shut us both up.
Anytime.
Alrighty, mate. And thank you very much to the viewers who have jumped on in. Anyone that has commented, Paul Mason, as usual, late to the show, wakes up about 3 hours after the racing starts. He has commented the very last comment of the day. Thank you very much, Paul Mason. And we'll see you all later, guys. Take care and have a great night, guys.
See ya.